All right, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, I am Josh Berrett, and I am the Director of Agent Success for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, which is a real estate brokerage.
All right, so does that mean you're a real estate agent or does that mean you have an office job with a real estate company?
That's a good question. I am a real estate agent. You don't have to be a real estate agent to be in this job, but usually you would have been at some different, at least at some point, so you can not just talk the talk, but also have walked the walk a little bit. So I've done deals for clients. I've helped other people. Um, but my main job is more of an office type job of training agents one-on-one, and doing a lot of coaching and trainings for the brokerage itself. My I oversee the productivity for the brokerage is basically what I do.
Okay, you said it was tell me your job title again.
The director of agent success.
Agent success. So you are helping Berkshire Hathaway real estate agents be
Yep,
successful, and Berkshire Hathaway is a
is a brokerage.
brokerage.
Um,
Tell me what do all these words mean?
yeah, great question. So most people don't really know how real estate works. So if you're a real estate agent, you have your licensed based with somebody. That could be with Keller Williams, it could be with Berkshire Hathaway, it could be with ERA, it could be with Remax, or there's a million different types of brokerages out there. But you have to, as an agent, be licensed with a brokerage. Now, you can go after 3 years or so and get your own broker's license and become your own broker. There's a lot of hassle that goes into that, meaning like you have to have a different type of banking account. You have to have um uh not a trust fund, but it's something similar. The word is escaping me right now, but like funding has to be different. You have to manage all the liability. You have to have insurance. It's called E&O insurance, which is emissions and errors. Um, but pretty much it's a hassle. So most people in the real estate agent industry put their license with a broker. It's kind of like you just kind of join this thing, and each broker charges different fees. Each broker offers different tools and has pros and cons. And so it's a lot of shopping around as a real estate agent of which one works best for me. And within these brokerages, sometimes you'll have teams. So sometimes you'll hear of the Red Sign team or the Jex team or the Case team or whatever. Um, these are real estate teams that exist inside a brokerage. There might be 5 or 6 or 10 agents on this team. They're kind of like a group inside the brokerage. Our brokerage currently has about 150 agents ish, give or take 30. Probably more like give, depending on how you look at it. Full-time agents, probably about that.
Okay, here's something I wondered is Berkshire Hathaway real estate brokerage the same as Berkshire Hathaway investments?
Yep. I mean, it's not the same. It's an auxiliary, right? It's an auxiliary branch of Warren Buffett's whole thing. Um, we're actually when we do marketing and stuff, we're not really allowed to bring him up or use his picture, which is hilarious. But he bought a brokerage called Prudential. If you've ever heard of the brokerage Prudential,
Okay.
it that's what Berkshire Hathaway used to be, was Prudential. And so he bought them out, pretty much.
Okay. And now it has the same name. I've always
And
wondered
now,
that when I saw the signs driving around like, oh, is Warren Buffett investing in real estate in my neighborhood? Wow.
yeah, he is. Yep, him directly. Yep. Tell your neighbors.
Great.
Just kidding.
So tell me kind of about your day to day at work, your agent success job. What do you do for that?
Yeah, great question. So I get in the office about 8:30. I try to work 8:30 to 4:30. That's just a choice that I make because a lot of agents don't really stay past 4 anyway. And because usually showings and things like that happen later in the afternoon, and I just prefer coming home early. But I work a regular 8-hour job, have a little lunch break, have a couple breaks in between, and it's just your average job. But my main day to day is meeting one-on-one with agents, or trying to understand how do we increase the productivity. So 4 days a week, I run trainings, which they can attend either virtually or in person. Um, and then the rest of the time is a lot of one-on-ones. I had 3 one-on-ones today, for example, of, hey, I've got this problem, or I have this idea, or I want to run this marketing program, or, you know, so on and so forth. And how would you suggest I go about this? Let's sit down, let's flesh it out so that we know what the step by step, what the day by day looks like for this.
How does how does a real estate brokerage company measure productivity?
So we base it off of GCI, which is gross commission income.
Okay.
Um, there's usually three metrics. One is volume. So volume meaning the amount of each home sold. So if it's a $500,000 house, that's $500,000 in volume. So if you're a really good
Okay.
agent, you're hitting tens of millions in volume. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So
Yep.
that's about 20 homes if you're basing it off a $500,000 house. So volume is one of them. We also base it off of unit count. So are you selling 10 homes a year, or are you selling 2 homes a year, or
Mhm.
50 homes a year, right? And then the other one is commission. And so are you taking home, like, as you know, we're trying to make what would be a normal salary. So the average salary in Utah is about 60K. So if you're making less than 60K, you're not doing very good as a real
Mhm.
estate agent. So we're checking to see if are you making enough commissions to cover that 60K plus mark, you know? Most agents, they want to be in the six figures. And so, what are you doing? What is your actions, your daily actions look like so that you're hitting those marks? Those are usually the three things, but more than anything, it's based off of commission because that's what pays everybody's bills, pays the agent's bills, pays the brokerage's bills, so on and so forth.
So then the commission that gets charged whenever a house is bought or sold, that goes to the agent and the brokerage. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, your average agent makes only about, I'm spitballing here, but let's say 40%. They'll take home about 40% of whatever commission your average consumer is paying them. Because part of it's going to the brokerage, part of it's going to E&O insurance, part of it's going to certain splits that they might have. Part of it, sometimes it's a referral, and so a big chunk of it goes to somebody else. Um, so on and so forth. They have expenses that they need to cover.
Okay.
It gets eaten up pretty fast.
So 40% of the 3% or whatever of the sale price actually
Whatever is
gets
negotiated.
goes into the pocket of the agent.
Yeah, 3% is like is maybe like an average.
Yeah.
It I don't know if you've heard about the lawsuit that just happened, but
Yeah, I
we
was going to
don't.
ask you about that later. Yeah.
Okay, great. We can talk about that later. Go ahead.
Okay, so you started out as a real estate agent and now you're doing this agent success job. Tell us, kind of walk us through your career progression. How did you get to where you are? Did you have to go to school? Just kind of start the beginning and walk us to where you are now.
Yeah, great question. So, um, I was in school when I started looking into this. I got licensed as a real estate agent, working at a marketing job for a real estate team. And I found that a lot of agents are really good at selling themselves. Well, they're really good at selling the product, which is a home, because a home's easy to sell. Everybody needs one. It's a solid investment. But they were really good, I mean, really bad at marketing themselves and really bad at running as a business. And so I was at BYU at the time. I graduated in public relations from the School of Communications. And I found that I was really good at helping people get in front of the public and helping people build their name and have campaigns that actually worked and all these things that agents are usually bad at. So I helped build a team. It was called the Frampton Real Estate Team, and the brokerage that I was at the time, Keller Williams, they noticed that I was good at that, and so they hired me to train on their tech and help agents, kind of like what I'm doing now. It was called the Director of Tech.
Okay.
Um, and I had that job for about 8 months, a little bit less than a year. Um, and they could only pay me so much in salary. They were capped at 50K, and at that time that was like decent money, but not good money for me. And so I got other offers to work for other teams and also for Berkshire Hathaway at the time. But I knew a guy, his name was Peter Merkel, and he ran a team and he offered me kind of a partnership deal. And so I took that and went and worked for him and built out his team. He could never break 1 million in GCI, and we went to like 1.4 first year, then 1.6 the second year, and we were just cruising. Um, and we had tons of success together. We really liked working with each other, and then I just started feeling capped because I built these systems that were working and brought a lot of consistency to his business and to his team. But the growth wasn't really there, and I was bored a lot. So I reached back out to Berkshire and they were still looking to hire. And after some negotiation, I took this job and left KW, which was bittersweet. And now I feel like I'm being pushed constantly, which is nice. The figuring out on how to help all these agents instead of just one team grow and develop their skills. Does that
So
answer your question?
are you still actively working as an agent at all? If it's on a side hustle weekend, if you'll help somebody sell their house or help somebody buy a house, or are you just focused on your training now?
Yeah, great question. I am currently helping three friends. Um, buy or sell a house. Like I post about it. Our as in our brokerage, the leadership st and the staff, we try not to compete. And so more recently, if somebody reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I want to buy or I want to sell," I'll usually get them in touch with one of our best agents at our brokerage and say,
Okay.
"Hey, look, let's team up. You do the dirty work. I'll just make a small cut." Um, but I'm trying not to, well, maybe not trying not to, but I don't make a living off of that. That's just
Okay.
kind of bonus. They trust me and so they want to work with me kind of money. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That makes sense. So now most of your career day to day is more training oriented. Is
Yes.
that right? Okay. So are you like developing curriculum or is this one-on-one you mentioned one-on-one coaching. Is this most of what you're spending your time doing? Is this repeating a curriculum that somebody else came up with? How does that all fit together?
Yeah, so the training is a lot of combined knowledge from what I would consider some of the best books on how to sell real estate that there are. And so it's just it's tricky with real estate or any sales job that there's not like a one fit wonder. You know, sometimes if you're doing door to door, they'll give you scripts, but sometimes people hate those scripts and sometimes people love those scripts and sometimes people just hate you in general because you're a door to door salesman, right? And so um for me, in my training, I really try to focus on what is something that you're passionate about doing, what are things that you love, what are things that like fill your cup, and how do we help those drive sales in your business? Does that make sense? So, and relationships are probably the biggest thing because people want to work with people that they trust, and this is the biggest investment that they'll ever spend time or money doing probably in their lifetime. Um, and so we want to make sure that we do it right. And so a lot of real estate sales is about building relationships, maintaining relationships, and offering enough value that when that time comes every 5 or 6 years, that your client or your friend needs to buy or sell, that you're the person that they think of, and staying top of mind for that reason.
Yeah, that resonates with me. When we bought our house in 2021, the beginning of 2021, the real estate situation was nothing was on market for more than 48 hours
Yep.
because as it got listed at the same time as the open house, after the open house, there was already a big list of offers available.
Yep.
And I remember at the time, I mean, we didn't know who was going to represent us. We knew a few people. We knew you, some another acquaintance that lives closer to us up here, and
Yep.
ultimately, uh, for our situation, the best fit was an agent up in this area who offered a commission rebate. So one of the slices of his commission was coming back to us,
Yep.
and he was very hands off, which at that time is what we needed because the houses were turning so fast. We knew it was going to be up to us to identify the house and decide on an offer. And there just wasn't that much time to go back and forth to an agent and ask for advice and talk about, well, what makes you happy in a home or whatever, because we just
Yeah.
needed to find a place. And so he ended up being perfect, where
Yeah.
we paid a little bit less, and ultimately it was exactly what we needed because we knew we were going to have to do most of the work ourselves anyway.
Yeah. That was a rough time, huh?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we got a great interest rate. I still think we probably overpaid for our house, but it's kept going up since then, so we're good.
Yeah. How can you complain?
Yeah,
Yeah, and your interest rate, man, is killer. That's the biggest thing, right? So
right. Yeah,
nice.
we got it right at the very bottom.
Right at
Um,
the bottom.
so on your day-to-day work, tell us some of the things you love about your job and some of the things you dread when you go into work every day.
Yeah, so working with Peter, it was very much a partnership. It was like I just kind of sometimes I'd work 5 hour days, sometimes I'd work 9 hour days. It's just like whatever needed to be done or whatever worked. With this, it's a corporate job, right? Like today they went through the dress code and went through the and that's not as fun for me. I kind of hate it, honestly. Um, that's probably my biggest beef that I have right now is working in the corporate sphere and feeling less like an owner again and feeling more like a cog in the wheel. But my long-term play is to work towards ownership in this company, and so I'm excited about that. But what I dread about is just that, like being held accountable to someone besides me,
Right.
or
Yeah.
or not just showing up. Because like I feel
Having a
like I've
boss.
yeah, having a boss, but like having a boss that cares about if you worked 8 hours or if you showed up on time, or
Yeah.
that makes sense, like, and not whether or not you got the job done, right? I've always been a did you get the job done kind of person
Right.
when I've either
Yeah.
hired or worked somewhere. Um, what I love is I love the fulfillment that comes from literally seeing changes happen in people's lives. I've been working with a team. I've only been there 6 months, and since I've been there, I could honestly say like 3 or 4 people I have changed their career because they've never had someone that had the answers of, okay, look, this is where you're stuck. This is where you need to go. This is what the hiring process looks like to help you get there. You haven't leveraged enough. This is what the structure might look like. They've just never had somebody with firsthand knowledge that I've been able to gain. Um, and it's pretty exciting to be sitting in a meeting after sitting like 10 meetings in, and you're like, you've changed, right? Like you now you're over busy because you have too much work, which is great, a great problem to have. You have an assistant, which you've never had before. You have a partner, which you've never had before, right? Like it's just people are growing businesses and I'm helping them along, and that's exciting. And I love that.
So you work directly for the brokerage,
Yep.
and it sounds like the agents maybe have a little more independence or autonomy within
Yep.
their kind of real estate business that they're building. And
Yep.
then they use or are part of a brokerage. That's where their license lives. That's where the money goes around. Is that right?
Yep.
Does that
Yeah.
fit?
Yeah, the brokerage's job pretty much is to offer value to help them grow their business, or if they don't need that kind of value, to be as cheap as possible. It's like to offer the value that is in line with the expense of the cost of the brokerage. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, so some of these problems that you were talking about having a boss or some of the corporate rules and stuff, do those also apply to the agents who use your brokerage?
Yeah, not at all. Yeah. They
Okay.
I mean to a point, right? Like we're all held under a code of ethics, and we don't care about how you dress, but we care about if you're lying to your clients,
Yeah.
because not only is there liability for us, but also we're just not sleaze bags, so we care. Um, but yeah, so they're to a point, for the most part, they can pretty much do whatever they want. They could come into the office every single day and watch Netflix the whole time in their office, and sometimes that's what happens. And sometimes they're running around with their head cut off, and they don't know how to manage the 5 clients that they're currently working with. And It's a lot, but they push through. So it just depends on the season and the agent.
But you don't watch Netflix at work. Your boss wouldn't like that very much, I
He would not like
imagine.
that very much. Yes, yes, yes. Whether or not I do, especially during lunch breaks, that is between me and my Heavenly
Lunch
Father.
break,
Just kidding.
different story. Lunch break is a
Lunch
totally
break,
different story.
the totally different story. That's right.
I remember
Yeah.
feeling guilty during graduate school because I would always watch some show during my lunch break as a chance to just turn my brain off.
Yeah.
So I've been there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to kind of the second part of the interview, and we'll start by asking, how much money do you make?
Um, I don't think there's anything that says I can't tell you. It's not like an exorbitant amount, but I make 10K a month.
Okay,
And
so
so
about
it's 150,
120.
120. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I was
So
gonna say be as specific or vague as you need to, but we'll take a clear number. That's great.
yeah, so I work even though I'm not technically a W-2 employee. I'm
Okay.
on a 1099 and I have made just my compensation has changed pretty drastically depending on the time. But yeah, right now I'm making 10K a month as a 1099 employee.
1099 means a contractor. Is that
Yep,
right?
that's right.
So do you have health insurance from your job right now?
I I don't. I do not have health
Okay.
insurance from my job right now.
All right. So as a contractor, 10K a month, 120 minus taxes, minus health insurance and some other things that might
Yep,
come if you were a salaried employee.
yep.
Okay. Yeah. Great. And for the agents who work with your brokerage, I imagine that that number of how much you make is is a really wide range depending on how much time you put in or things like that. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean you go from zero to, you know, 700 depending on what you're doing, how big of deals you're doing. I mean, there are agents in our brokerage that are selling $20 million homes. You know what I'm saying? And so with that, depending on whatever commission percentage you've negotiated, let's say it's even 1%, right? That's like
Still a
I think
lot.
that's 200K on a
Yeah.
$20 million home, right? And so um yeah, it can add up quick. It can also be dead, completely dead. And Utah market is super saturated. I think there's two agents for every home sold right now. And so it's kind of a crapshoot on whether or not you get a deal. And if you think
So
about it,
that's
there are agents selling 50 homes in a year, right? And so if there's two agents for every home, right, that's 100 agents that lost out on those 50 homes.
right. So some agents are not selling anything in a given year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the majority are not selling anything in a given year. I think it's an 80% quit rate per year of licensed agents. Not per year, per 2 years of licensed agents, because you have to renew every 2 years. And so
Right.
once that renewal comes, you get a lot of people that don't renew or just go inactive.
Yeah. So I've heard, I think a few of my friends are real estate agents. They have a license, they have a brokerage, but they never are actively looking for clients or commissions. They're just doing it to save money on their own investment properties
Totally.
or to help a family company so that whatever real estate transactions are cheaper. Because if you're the agent, you don't have to pay yourself a commission, of course.
Yep. Yeah, I own investment properties, and I have saved a lot of money by
Yeah.
being a real estate agent and buying property at the same time. So it's nice.
Yeah, makes sense. So what other benefits come from having this job? Um, and also, do you feel like it's a pretty stable or secure job?
Yeah, I feel like it's very stable and secure. The brokerage itself makes good money because of the quantity of agents that we have. Um, it's not like anything like obscene, like no one's making millions, right? Like we don't have CEOs that are getting paid, you know, 800K a year or something. So it's not like exorbitantly large, but it's decent. It's good money, and the probably the biggest benefit from having this job is the growth that I'm having, right? I've learned just even the past 6 months, like it's kind of like all come together. Like all these things that I've always known, but I haven't like put them together. Like I feel like my teaching skills and my understanding have solidified um pretty extensively. But the other huge benefit is the growth opportunity moving forward too. Because my long-term play, the reason why I took this job is to become an owner of the brokerage and to become the broker itself. And so I'm thinking 5 years down the road, yeah, it sucks, has kind of a corporate feel right now. But 2 years from now, I'm having ownership talks. 5 years from now, hopefully I'm assisting and running the place. And so
Okay.
that's my long-term play um with
So
it.
when you say that, does that mean like like you would become a partner in a law firm as an example? You'd be a part
Yep.
owner of this brokerage or you'd go start your own.
Part owner of this brokerage. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the long-term play.
And what benefits come from being an owner? How's that different?
Yeah, that's a great question. The biggest benefit is, well, it's obviously there's always more money that to be an owner. Maybe not always, but in this scenario, there's more money in being an owner. Um, and to just not feel like an employee, right? It just takes away like I have an ownership of something, and now I'm not building something for someone else. I'm building it for me. In my mind,
Okay.
that's kind of what I'm looking for the most. There are other benefits like um the partners that I'll be working with and they like just being in real estate in general just opens up so many doors. You get development opportunities, you get first hear of things that are popping up or going on or really great investment properties or whatever it might come up, right? So there's other side benefits, but what I'm looking for the most is stability for my family and something where I can become an owner and be able to work the hours I want to work, um, and live the life I want to live, which is more family oriented than most people probably in my life.
And grinding in the office every day.
Yes.
Does that is that where you essentially buy in, you become a partner, and then you kind of share in whatever profits come from the brokerage? Is
Yeah,
that how
pretty
that would
much. Yeah.
work? Okay.
Yeah, there's the buy-in option, which I probably won't pursue, and there's the earn your spot option. So what I'm working toward right now is the earn your spot option, which they've been really clear, and I've been really clear from the beginning of hiring me that like this is what I'm here for, is to earn my spot kind of thing. So
Okay, that makes sense. I didn't know any of this about real estate brokerages. All I knew about real estate was my one agent that we used to help buy our one house that we've bought.
yeah,
So
there you go. Lessons are being learned here for all of us.
great. So tell us about your educational background or what kind of education would be good for somebody who would want to get your same job.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique job. You really want to have some kind of marketing background, um, because a lot of what I teach are marketing practices or campaign management. And so my background was in PR, which I think helped significantly because that is just basically pure campaign conversations. Yeah, so I think that that helps significantly. You also could just have no background. Like real estate's kind of funky when you actually hire an employee in real estate, which employees in real estate are few and far between, aside from like office assistants or um, like finance department. Like those are the two main things. But occasionally you have to hire somebody that's either called a team leader or a broker or something like that who's in charge of training, in charge of agent development, so on and so forth. And you know, you in terms of education, I would say more than anything, something communication based. So you can
Okay.
your communication skills can be on par.
And what about someone who just wants to be an agent?
As an agent, and I mean you have to have a high school diploma and you
Okay.
have to pass the test. That's the biggest thing. And so a 120-hour course, you can go take the course. The entire 120-hour course is free. Um, You can find that online and go through the whole process for free. It takes forever. It's super hard. And then you have to take a test and you have to pass it by, I think it's 75% um, or higher. And yeah, and then you're good to go. But I think you will succeed the most if you're a social person. You're on social media, you have a lot of social media friends in some capacity. You don't have to do that, but that helps pretty significantly. Um, or you're willing to door knock like a crazy person and talk to strangers all the time because those two things, either you're popular and well connected or you're talking to strangers all the time.
Okay. So this has been a really interesting conversation because you've been able to tell us both about being just a real estate agent, but also your more specific training job, which may or may not exist at every real estate brokerage that
It
there
definitely does
is.
not.
Right.
Usually it's the broker that's doing the trainings. So it has to be a big
Okay.
enough brokerage to hire somebody to help with that,
That's been
right?
an interesting conversation because that's just a completely different kind of career. It's, of course, you're training about real estate, but the stuff that you're doing every day is totally different than what an agent would be doing every day.
Yep.
So you've told us kind of what kind of people would be successful at this job. Do you have any other advice for someone who's interested in pursuing a career either as a real estate agent or a, in a training job like you have now?
Yeah, if you're thinking of being a real estate agent, my suggestion is to join a big brokerage that has a really good training program because it you need help. You don't know what you're doing, and you think that you do, and you think it's easy, but there's a ton of liability that comes with selling homes because you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, and there's a lot of ways to really screw up. And so, don't be afraid of that, but join up with people who will help you and guide you through that process. When it comes to my job in particular, I would say um, find admin jobs and grow on those because there's a pretty decent amount. You can start as a transaction coordinator, you can start as a tech trainer, you can start as all kinds of things. There's a pretty decent amount of that. Um, but you'll learn pretty quick, or maybe you won't, but hypothetically you'll learn pretty quick if it's for you. If you enjoy and if you thrive in that type of a position where you're building out the back end of a team or you're assisting a very successful agent to build out their back end and to actually like run marketing programs and grow with their database. Um, if you're good at that or not. And if you are, then the next progression is more agents or bigger teams or whatever that might look like.
Okay, great. So this is where if this was a huge channel already with thousands of subscribers and we had like a membership program, I'd say join us for the bonus episode. But since this is going to be one of the very first videos ever on the channel, it's just staying in the normal video. So you've been talking a lot about selling real estate as part of your brokerage. So I guess
Uh-huh.
the first question is, do you are any of your agents buyer's agents, or is anybody a strictly buyer's agent?
Well, everything you sell is about real estate, right? You're selling, even to buyers, you're selling real estate because people don't understand how much agents affect how many people buy homes, right? A lot of people won't progress. They don't understand what the process looks like. They won't take those steps until someone pushes them into it. I mean, like, I think you and I have had probably six or so conversations before you even found the other agent, right? And had a conversation with them. We
Hmm.
had multiple conversations about buying a home. And um, those are little seeds that get planted in buyers until they're like, okay, well, actually, I'm going to go do this. And, regardless of who they work with, right? Usually it's agents that are pushing these thoughts into into buyers' heads to start thinking about that process because one, we make money off of it, and two, it's a pretty solid investment for, 90% of the time, but not 100%, but 90%, maybe not even 90, but most of the time. It's a pretty solid investment. Um, and so yeah. So when I say sell, I mean both sides, right? Both
Okay.
selling to buyers and selling to sellers. Um, your services, basically, because we're a service-oriented industry. We're
Right.
selling our service, right? We're not selling homes as much as we're selling our service to sell your home.
Right. Okay, now I want to come back to that recent lawsuit. I remember, I mean, the first times we started talking about real estate when we lived in Texas and we were kind of trying to decide if we were going to stay there or if we were going to get a new job. And of course, this is during COVID. And so everything was crazy. The job market was crazy. The housing market was crazy.
Yep.
Um, and so I really appreciated those candid conversations that I could have with you about like how does the process even work? Because I had no idea.
Yeah.
And it turned out that it would have been a bad idea for us to stay in Texas because my job wasn't going to keep up with competing offers there. But then when we decided to move to Utah, it's like, okay, now we have to be serious. Can we afford to buy a house? Does it make sense now? And then that's when we started looking around. It was available for rental, for buying, whatever.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious. I remember thinking, especially because home prices were going up so fast, I remember thinking that the standard commission rate was just really big at the
Mm.
time because things were going really fast. And I don't know a lot of details about this lawsuit, except that it has something to do with those kind of standard accepted commissions. Can you explain a little more what the lawsuit is about? I'm
Yeah.
assuming that you
Great.
know more about it than me.
I, I hope so. I hope that I know more about it than you. Well, actually, unless you really studied it, but let me start by saying I'm not like an expert on this lawsuit. Like I haven't dived into every detail of it, but I know a pretty decent overview. So somewhere in like Mississippi, I'm pretty sure it was Mississippi, where, people are marrying their cousins, someone screwed up real like big time. And there was, I believe, my understanding is that there was collusion between brokers of saying, this is what we're going to charge everybody, so on and so forth, which is totally illegal. We all knew that. They weren't using buyer broker agreements, which we use here in Utah as a standard, which says, I represent you. This is how much I cost. They were just going into it and then charging their clients later. It was a freaking hot mess. So someone got the bright idea, oh, I'm going to sue not only this agent, but the entire NAR. And they won, which is no small thing. The
Yeah.
NAR stands for the National Association of Realtors, where most MLSs require you to be a part of that association because it has a code of ethics. It has all these types of things. Um, that's where most of like the real estate lobbying happens is from the NAR because it's like the national company, right? And so anyway, so they sued, they won, and so they made a bunch of changes that just basically made it more confusing for people who are already doing it right, like us, right? The way that we were doing it before the lawsuit was, first of all, you had to sign a buyer broker or a seller agreement before you can do anything. And it would lay out this is how much we cost, this is what the commission is, these are the services that we provide. It's our fiduciary duty to protect you, to help you with blank services. Um, and in the event, if you're a seller, oftentimes that we would try to convince a seller to also pay for the buyer because buyers can afford an agent, but also agents are bringing buyers to the table most of the time. And so that's what this looks like. We'd have it on the MLS. Okay. So on the MLS, if you were a buyer agent, you could go on and you could see, okay, this house is offering this much commission, this house is offering this commission. And for the majority of agents, um, it doesn't matter how much commission they were offering. It would matter more of are they or not? And it was very rare for to not see it. So you knew you were making, not getting paid whenever you were showing homes or whatever it might be. Because in order to be on the MLS, you had to have some kind of offer, even if it was $1. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? You followed me so far? Um, so fast forward to this lawsuit happens, they change all the laws, they took off all the commission structure on the MLS. And
Okay.
so now you have to negotiate your commission as part of the contract or prior to the contract for every single home. Before you show homes, before anything happens, all of the commissions are negotiated um, up front, which, there's pros and cons to that. Um, let's see, what was the other thing I was going to say? Um,
I have a
oh,
question.
and
Oh, you go first. Yeah, you go first.
Well, and the other thing is that you are not allowed to show homes without a full buyer broker agreement in place, which wasn't the case before. Like you could say, okay, look, agent, I don't know if I like you yet. Let's go see a few homes. And if I like you, then I'll sign a buyer broker because a buyer broker, um, uh, it's a legal document that makes it so that that agent represents you for that home and future homes moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Um, And so that changed. So now you had to sign it before you saw homes. So if you didn't know a client, it's a little bit awkward of like, oh, hey, here's a legal document. We can't do literally anything until you sign this. So hopefully you'll like me, kind of thing. So anyway, it felt like a lot of um, more complications. But what's your question before I talk about the effects
So
of it?
two questions. One is uh, the buyer broker agreement. Does that have to last for a certain amount of time, or could you essentially say, here's the agreement, it lasts for 1 day or one house showing, so I
Yeah,
can show you this house, and
you
then
can
if
do
you
it
hate
per
me, you
time or per property.
okay,
Usually we would do it per time because we would have waited. Like, okay, you like me enough, so now let's do it. Because we want to protect ourselves too, right? As a real estate
right.
agent, I don't want to go show 10 homes and then have you change your mind. And so um, we would usually do 3 months or something like that. Like, let's go see homes for a couple months. And then it would have a 2 or 3 month protection period after that that said, okay, if you bought a house that I showed you, I would be entitled to commission if you chose to use another agent. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. And then on the other side, from my brain, I always try and think in terms of like logical economics. What is everybody's incentive here?
Yeah.
What I heard about the lawsuit is that the reason you can't advertise commissions anymore is because it gives sellers agents a perverse incentive towards houses that offer a higher commission. And I think you explained it well, where if the agent really is acting as a fiduciary to
Yeah.
act in the best interest of the client, then the commission on the listing shouldn't matter to them.
Yes. Yeah.
But if someone's acting in their own interest and they see this one has a higher commission, I want to show this one to my client and maybe help convince them to buy it, as opposed to this other house that has a lower commission or is not advertising a commission because I don't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen there.
Well, if you were a good agent before or after the lawsuit, you're explaining to your client that, look, my fee is X, my minimum fee is X, which are two different numbers, right? Like they don't have to be the same number. That's
Hmm.
I don't like to use percentages since the lawsuit, so I'm not going to use them. So I'm going to use numbers, okay? So um let's say that my fee is $5,000, right?
Okay.
As a minimum. But and as a maximum it's $10,000, right? So as a minimum, my fee is $5,000, and as a maximum, it's $10,000. If we're going on the MLS, we're going to go see all these houses. Um, I will know up front prior to the lawsuit, like this is how much they're going to pay. It falls in that range, so I'm good, right?
Yeah.
Like we're good. If they're going to offer me $100 for me to go show this house, and I'm going to spend the next month representing you legally, making sure that like that's not enough money to cover the 30 hours of the first 2 weeks, that I'm going to
Right.
spend with all this liability. Because what happens in lawsuits in real estate is that people don't sue buyers or sellers usually. Usually they sue agents, and that liability falls pretty heavy and pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're under contract. Um, anyway, and so if it's within that range, like I'm good. Like it doesn't make a difference. And I'm having that conversation with you. And so if a house isn't offering to cover that range, again, I'm having that conversation with you. Oh, great. Hey, that looks like a great house. it doesn't cover my minimum fee. And so we can go see it. That's totally fine, but you have to understand that you're going to bring that money to the table
Yeah.
rather than having somebody else cover that. Is that okay? Kind of thing. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, that
it
makes
made
sense.
it a little bit easier where now they don't have to tell you whether or not. Like we're trying to get documents signed even before showings that will say, hey, look, we'll offer a fee, or we're just taking it by word of mouth. And it's a huge risk to our industry to go in and say, hey, let's go show these homes. We don't know, we're not guaranteed anymore. Not maybe not guaranteed, but we don't know what compensation will be. Sometimes we'll show homes, we'll show 30 homes, and then the ones our client like, they said that they'll give us a commission. We write the offer, they say hard no. Our buyer loves it. We've already spent 3 months looking at homes with this person. Our buyer can't afford something else. We're just, we just get shot in the leg. If you're a good agent, you just take the hit. You wish him luck and you say, hey, good, go get it done. Or you ask, okay, what can you pay me? Like what can
Yeah.
you do to make this work? But anyway, it's just more complicated now. Do
This
you want to
is
know a
the
little? Oh, sorry.
I was just saying this is an interesting conversation, and we've kind of gone off left field of tell us about your job, but I'm interested in it. So I'm
Yeah.
going to keep talking about it. And whether we put it on YouTube, whether anybody cares to watch, whatever, I guess that's up to them. Okay, so
Yeah.
what were you going to say here?
But I was going to say a couple interesting things of the fallout is that we haven't seen commissions change significantly. Um, Basically, when you go into a listing appointment now, it's the same conversation except for it's, hey, look, Mr. Seller, we want to sell your house. This is what my fee looks like. My fee is X. Okay. Now, we recommend you provide a buyer compensation as well because most buyers come from agents. You don't have to do that. We recommend that you do it because it will widen the buyer pool and someone will probably ask for it anyway. So it's better to go in with that expectation. We recommend between X and X. What do you want to do, Mr. Seller? Does that make sense?
Hmm.
And we have seen that most people, especially because we're in a hard market to sell, right? Like rates are
Yep.
high, buyers are few. And so it hasn't really affected the industry so far. Now, when it becomes a heavy one-sided market, that might change, right? If rates go super down again, buyers become, you know, there's a million buyers, you know, that's going to take a hit, just like it did last time, right?
Right.
Um, so, and that those types of things happen with seasonality with real estate anyway, but um, mostly the effect that we've seen in the industry is just more complicated rather than people saving money, which was the whole thing. Like they said, oh, well, rates will drop or prices will drop by 3% because, or 5% or whatever, because commissions will slowly die out. And that's not what we've seen. We've seen,
Right.
because why would a seller sell for less? They'd rather just pay the other agent less, right? The value of the home's not going to change. They still want to make the 500K. They still want to make the 550, whatever that number looks like. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
One thing that's been interesting to me when we were buying our house and first learning about real estate in Texas, we did meet an agent who showed us a couple of houses. I don't feel bad about that. We were doing it in good faith because we knew we were either going to buy a house and stay with my job in Texas, or we were going to take a job out of state and move away. And so
Totally.
it's not like we were stringing an agent along just so we could look at our neighbors' houses and see how much they were worth or whatever.
Totally.
Um, but once we moved, and even in those initial discussions, everyone always said buyers don't pay for their agent. Buyers don't pay for their agent. Buyers' agents
Mm,
are free.
yeah.
Um, and you're talking about buyer compensation here. And it always drove me nuts because one
Because it's not.
way, one way you can look at it is yes, technically the seller is paying for the buyer's real estate agent.
Yeah, but all the funds
But
come from the buyer.
exactly, the money that
Yep.
they're using to pay is the money that the buyer is giving them to buy their house.
Yeah,
Anyway,
technically the buyer's paying for everybody, right?
right, the whole thing.
The whole market though, like the trick that people don't understand. So you're absolutely right, right? Like right now, the US market since who knows when, 100 years, um, has had agent commissions tied into the value of the home,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So like, yeah, your home is worth 500K, but really it's worth 470 plus agent commissions,
Yeah.
right? Because that's just how it's been since the beginning of time, right? Since we've been tracking this stuff. And so for a realistic expectation of homeowners to suddenly be like, hey, you know what? We're not going to pay agents, but we'll lower our price from 500 to 470. Like that should be zero. No one wants to do that, right? They'd rather say like, oh, you know what? I'd rather just see if I can find a buyer and just not pay the commission and still keep the 500 because it's in some markets that's possible. And so
Right.
that's the rub is um the expectation was, oh, this will change all the pricings, but that's not how what's the word capitalism works, right?
People are maximizing their profits. It
Maximizing their
sounds to
profits.
me, it sounds to me like next time we buy a house, if we ever buy a house again, we would be able to sit down with our seller agent, who maybe
Hmm.
would be the same as our buyer agent if we're buying in the same state,
Hmm.
uh, and say, we will pay you $200 an hour. Promise to be honest about the hours you work on our home, and we could sign that paperwork and make it work if they agree to whatever the hourly rate is. It's
Totally.
not, it doesn't have to be commission as a percentage of the value of the home.
Yeah, my backup is an hourly rate. So if someone, so basically like maybe not my negotiating, but if I'm sitting with a buyer or a seller, well, with a buyer, because a seller, I'll just give them a fee up front and say, hey, look, I don't want to like you say that like that's a good idea, but you underestimate how many hours an agent will spend on the phone with buyer agents, doing marketing programs, so on and so forth in the background. Like, and also like what does being on call mean? Or like what
Uh-huh.
what does like on the clock
Right.
actually mean, right? Um, it gets really complicated really fast. So in my mind, it's better to have like a straight up fee. Hey, look, this is the total fee. This is how much we'll pay you, even if it's like whatever percentage or dollar amount you want it to be, right? This is what we can offer. This is what we feel comfortable with. I feel like that's a better route to go for everybody's sake.
Hmm.
Um, but my backup with buyers is an hourly rate where like, okay, look, if we go and we find a house that you love, they're hard no for a commission. This is what my hourly rate is. So when you have questions, whatever it might be, you can just reach out to me. I can help you write the contract. I can help you, maybe find an inspector if you feel like that's worth the hourly rate, right? Then then we can just go from there. And I've done that before with my uncle, where he bought a for sale by owner. They said hard no on using an agent. I don't want any agents involved. And so I just was an agent on the background, just giving
Okay.
them advice when they needed, and they paid an hourly fee. So
That makes
happens all the
sense.
time.
Yeah, I can see how you could structure a contract that way where it's hourly fee, minimum this amount, maximum this amount. And if your commission happens to be higher than whatever the maximum amount is, then you can
And so be
rebate it
it.
back to the seller. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Well, this has been a really interesting conversation. If people want to find you or your brokerage, how can they do that? How can they find you?
Yeah, great question. So how could they find me? Well, probably
If you
email.
want to be found, I should say
Do
that.
I want to be
If
found? It's just like I'm a very Utah County specific job. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, I can help Salt Lake County. I can help North Salt Lake County. What's your county that you live in? What is it
we live
called?
all the way up in Weber County.
Weber County. That's right. Yeah, so I can help Weber County. Like, I can help other counties, but like, unless you are looking in Utah, you know, specifically, I can't really help you.